The historical selfie. I'm here in the village of Cold Spring to show you about the power of place and the power of storytelling. So here in Cold Spring, this place has a powerful story to tell, a story of 3 revolutions, starting with the American Revolution behind me at West Point, the Industrial Revolution at the West Point Foundry, and finally the environmental movement, the birthplace of the environmental movement, with the saving of Storm King Mountain right across the river. This video is a little bit different than the others I've done because it's going to deal with history, but it's also going to deal with a new climate mandate that New York State has implemented for teachers. What's that you say, another mandate? Awesome. So when teachers hear about another mandate, they often feel overwhelmed and overburdened, and rightfully so. But I'm here to tell you that this mandate for climate literacy can empower teachers, students, and the community at large. So I'm here to reassure you that it's going to be okay. So with this video, I'm going to show you the power of place and tell you the story of how this area banded together, where ordinary citizens got together to create the birthplace of the environmental movement and can inspire us today. So history leaves clues, and essentially throughout history, we are at our best when we work together. So the theme of this video is finding ways for us to work together and unite rather than be divided. So join me on this beautiful afternoon as we go live history in the town of Cold Spring, New York. This video is a public service message for teachers and also for parents and for community members to realize that there is this new climate literacy in New York State, and that this is part of the ongoing effort to be the Excelsior state where New York is going to lead the way in climate action and creating good citizenship and emphasize critical thinking to solve our problem. We acknowledge the Hudson River Valley is the ancestral homeland of the Wappinger people. We honor the Wappinger Nation enduring relationship with this land and recognize their histories, resilience, and continued presence. All right, our first stop on the power of place and storytelling is Dockside Park. This previously was the home to a blast furnace in the 19th century and now has been converted into this beautiful park that takes in climate change and has created a shoreline that can adapt to the changes that have been happening in our environment. So right here in Cold Spring, we have the past of the Industrial Revolution meeting with the present day realities of our changing environment and how we can adapt and maintain a sense of balance. Often our educational system keeps us in the classroom and keeps us separated. So by doing this power of place and storytelling walk, we're going to be able to incorporate the different disciplines of education and critical thinking and try to come up with ways to come up with solutions. This video is part of my ESF master's program, and this class is on public relations. So I'm trying to advocate for educating people about the new climate mandate, as well as to create public relations to show how there's many benefits to incorporating climate literacy into the classroom for our students, teachers, and for our community at large. Dockside Park can be incorporated into New York State climate literacy standards as a local place-based case study that helps students understand climate adaptation, mitigation, and human environmental interaction. Educators can use the park to demonstrate thinking by examining how flood-resistant design, native plantings, and shoreline management respond to climate risks such as sea level rise and extreme weather. By analyzing real-world engineering and ecological solutions with their own community, students build climate literacy while connecting global climate concepts to local action and decision-making. All right, so there's a little glimpse of Dockside Park in Cold Spring, this beautiful little tranquil spot right along the water. That's great for taking walks, drawing, just getting out and getting some fresh air. Our next stop is going to be the site of the Industrial Revolution, where the Industrial Revolution got started, and that is at the West Point Foundry. So come with me to our next stop. Understanding the historical context of the Industrial Revolution is essential for explaining the origins of human-caused climate change. This period marked a dramatic increase in fossil fuel use for industry, transportation, and energy, and permanently altered the Earth's carbon cycle and raising greenhouse gas emissions. Viewing climate change through the lens shows it is a cumulative result of past economic and technological decisions rather than a sudden modern issue. Cold Spring, New York is also a great example of the power of place, because not only is the birth of the modern environmental movement, but it is also the former home of the West Point Foundry. In the 1850s, this was also the start of the Industrial Revolution, where they made cannons for the Civil War. Cannons were provided to fight to preserve the Union and to end slavery, but it is also the site where fossil fuels were used in abundance, and it was the start of the military-industrial complex that we still have today. This spot provides a living timeline going back to thousands of years when some of these highlands behind me were founded, and then you have this pre-industrial era, and then with the rise of the Industrial Revolution, you have a commitment to burning of fossil fuels, and then there was a nearby Marathon battery factory, which in the 1950s, massive amounts of heavy metals and waste would flow into the cove, and it would poison wildlife and cause ecological damage. In the 1990s, this became a cleanup site, and with the help of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, it was declared a Superfund site, and a $100 million cleanup was in place to dredge all the sediments and to try to restore it back to its glory as it is today. So now it's owned by Scenic Hudson, and it's meant to ensure the protection of the environment and also provide a public resource for recreation and education. So today the Foundry Cove provides habitat for abundant wildlife and is a prime bird watching and paddling destination. So here at the West Point Foundry, the start of the Industrial Revolution was powered by water. So water power would move the wheel as they would bore into the cannons to make the cannons, and they were fueled by charcoal. Later on, most of these operations would be moved out farther west to places like Pittsburgh, where they relied on fossil fuels of coal, which is a dirtier fuel, and it led to higher rates of emissions. So again, we need to have historical context, and in Cold Spring, we can find out where the Industrial Revolution got started, and then we can also look to where the environmental movement got started. By examining the connections between the past and present, students learn to recognize the important long-term impacts of human activity on Earth's systems. The New York State Climate Literacy Standards also aim to empower students with knowledge and skills needed to think critically, engage in problem solving, and contribute to meaningful climate solutions for the future. So from the Foundry, we're going to take a walk into the village and head towards Little Stony Point, our next stop along the way. So this is a very walkable little village, and along this road here is where the 2,000 employees often called home, and then they would report to work. So they would hear the bell and report to work, and then go home to these nice little cottages like we have here. So the village of Cold Spring provides a little case study of how we can make sure that our towns and villages are walkable and accessible, and we don't need to rely so much on cars. So we can try to design places where we can walk and have accessibility and have a sense of community and belonging. So perhaps this can be the blueprint of towns and villages of the future. Teacher centers like Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES play an important role in supporting New York State climate change laws by providing professional learning, curriculum, and resources for educators. They help teachers interpret climate literacy standards and align lessons with state policies through workshops, model lessons, and collaborative planning. These centers ensure that climate education is effectively and consistently implemented in classrooms across the region. So behind me is one of the hundreds of schools that will be initiating climate literacy into the classrooms starting in the 2027-2028 school year. And it is up to us to advocate for the successful implementation of this mandate, and also to make it in a way that is practical and builds rather than divides. The United States public education system was founded with the 19th century factory model that came from the West Point Foundry, and that was set up with bells and set up with different subjects where you learn math and science and social studies in each different class, and that was efficient. But now we're in a world where we need more collaboration than ever before, and hopefully with this climate literacy, the only way for this to be successful is to be implemented throughout and infused throughout all the subject areas. So this is a way for schools to come together, for communities to come together, and for us to work towards a more sustainable future. So in my work as getting my master's at SUNY ESF, I've tried to learn different methods and techniques to incorporate climate literacy into my classroom. And I've also taught classes to educators, and I've also spoken at New York State social studies conferences in a way to try to find creative ways to develop a curriculum that is going to meet our needs. So in my 30 years teaching, we've never had any real conferences or any kind of staff development on climate change, but the reality is that our pre-industrial level of carbon in the atmosphere was at about 280 parts per million, and now we are at about 420 parts per million in the year 2026. So this rapid increase of carbon is going to create change to our climate in many ways. So more carbon means more moisture in the air, so you're going to get more extreme weather, you're going to get more extreme flooding, and villages like Cold Spring have been impacted by that. Recently, there was a tremendous flood in July of 2023, and that causes lots of damage to property and as well as loss of life on the other side of the river. So climate change is real, and we have to understand that it's based on our history and our reliance on fossil fuels, but hope is real too. Parks like the Hudson Highlands and Cold Spring can serve as powerful outdoor classrooms for understanding the New York State climate literacy standards by allowing students to observe climate concepts firsthand in a local, real-world setting. Learning in these landscapes connects abstract climate ideas to tangible experiences, strengthens system thinking, and environmental stewardship. Our final stop is Little Stony Point to observe Storm King Mountain directly across the Hudson River. Behind me is the beautiful and iconic Storm King Mountain. The Dutch called it Butter Hill because it looked like a blob of butter there. But then in the 19th century, to give it a more majestic nature, it was renamed to Storm King Mountain. And this is the start where the Hudson River painters came here. They were inspired by the beauty of the Hudson River Valley. And Thomas Cole came up here and painted this Storm King Mountain scenery 200 years ago. Fast forward to the 1960s, this is where Con Edison, in its need for power, proposed putting a hydroelectric plant. The battle to save Storm King Mountain was won through determined grassroots activism led by figures such as Robert Boyle and Franny Reese. Robert Boyle, a key founder of Scenic Hudson, helped bring legal challenges against the proposed hydroelectric plant, setting a landmark precedent for citizen standings in up to environmental cases. Franny Reese mobilized thousands of local residents, organized public opposition, and transformed the community concern into a sustained environmental movement. Together, their leadership helped halt the project in 1980 and established Storm King as a lasting symbol of citizen-driven environmental protection. The battle to save Storm King helps inspire New York State climate literacy standards by demonstrating how informed citizens can use science, history, and civic action to protect the environment. This story reinforces the standard goal of empowering students to apply knowledge, take action, and see themselves as capable participants in addressing climate and environmental challenges. So with this knowledge of climate literacy, hopefully this gets us thinking about how we can incorporate this and infuse this into our subject area and to our students, and to try to connect with each other as teachers and connect with our students in order to preserve these places and to make sure that the beauty is left for all. All right, so I'm gonna leave you here at the beautiful location known as Little Stony Point, Storm King Mountain, that was saved as a result of a relentless group of people who refused to say no for an answer and knew that they were on the right side of history. And we benefit from their works. So our actions today can have a ripple effect throughout space and time. And we thank those individuals that helped preserve this landscape for us to enjoy. So here at Little Stony Point, we actually have 3 revolutions that we can witness. If you look downriver, across the river, you'll see West Point. That was Fortress West Point in the American Revolution. That was the key to the continent. And George Washington and the soldiers helped create the United States of America by creating this fort and by withstanding years of suffering and perseverance in order to create the United States of America and to try to fulfill the words of the Declaration of Independence. And then also on the banks of the Hudson River was the Industrial Revolution, where I showed you the West Point Foundry. And finally, we have our 3rd revolution that got started, the birth of the environmental revolution. And this is a revolution that continues. The struggle continues, and we will advocate for the environment, we'll advocate for community, and for cooperation. Like the fight to save Storm King, the standards help students see how individual and collective actions can lead to meaningful change. This empowerment encourages students to become informed decision makers and active participants in building a more sustainable and resilient future. And for my fellow teachers, know that you are not alone. PNW BOCES is committed to supporting you with professional learning and collaborative networks. This support will inspire educators to teach climate literacy with confidence and courage. Teachers will lead meaningful conversations and be the catalyst for positive change in the classroom, community, and the planet. So this is an amazing site, and we encourage you to get out of your classrooms and to keep living history.